total, I've been homeless 6 years out of my 43.
If you would have told me some years ago you're going to be homeless, I would have laughed in their face. I'm not laughing now.
I've been homeless. This will be going on 2 years at the end of February.
Sometimes you can't even tell a person is homeless. I was like that for quite a while myself.
It first appeared in early 2013. It was a bronze sculpture on the campus of Regis College, University of Toronto, Canada. The sculpture depicts a homeless person covered with a blanket and sleeping on a bench. At first glance, it could be any park bench in any town in America, including Spokane, and the cloaked figure could be any homeless person seeking warmth and rest beneath the blanket. Any homeless person. That is, until your eye is drawn to the only exposed part of the body, the feet. They're pierced. Known as Jesus the Homeless by Canadian sculptor Timothy Schmaltz, the sculpture depicts Jesus as a homeless person sleeping on a park bench. Originally intended as an interpretation of Matthew 25:31-46, the sculpture wasn't universally well received. When a cast of Jesus the Homeless was installed outside St. Albans Episcopal Church in Davidson, North Carolina in 2013, some local residents felt it was an insulting depiction of Jesus that demeaned the neighborhood. One local resident actually called the police when she saw it for the first time, mistaking the sculpture for a real homeless person. That's right, she called the cops on Jesus. You just can't make this stuff up. There's an enduring metaphor here about our attitudes and responses toward the homeless, and what happens when uncomfortable truth confronts our misconceptions, when homeless Jesus confronts middle-class America. And if our response is, yes, but Jesus isn't homeless or in need, then we've missed the whole point of Matthew 25:31-46. You and I won't fully appreciate the message of Jesus the homeless until we begin to see his face in the faces of unlikely people, including homeless campers caught up in a law enforcement sweep of homeless camps with their possessions being tossed into a city garbage truck. In the process, the garbage truck ran over the hand of one of the campers who had to be taken to the hospital. If the role of the church is to speak truth to power, and if you had been present on this Friday in February, how would you have spoken truth to power? And where would you have seen the face of Jesus? In the face of law enforcement or in the face of homeless campers? How we see people is the beginning of how we treat people. Gazing into these faces is an appropriate moment to ask ourselves, would I treat Jesus this way? Answer that question correctly, and 3 lives will be changed. Yours, theirs, and the life of our community. Let's start with who is Suki?
I don't know, I'm just discovering, actually. So we might actually go back a little ways, because I never imagined myself as being homeless. In fact, I remember driving down the street with my mother and her looking over at a homeless man who's digging through a dumpster and her looking shocked and saying, "Oh my goodness, that's so-and-so. I used to date him. Who would imagine he'd be digging through a dumpster now? How embarrassing," or something like that. So who knew I'd be that person? I sure didn't ever imagine it. As much as homelessness has its cons, as in most of it being social social stigma, I guess, would be the best words for it. It also has its pros, and one of them is that you get to really discover who you are, if that be your journey, I guess. And that kind of has been my journey so far. I've been homeless, this will be going on 2 years at the end of February. It's different. It's not something I would wish on my worst enemy.
How did your homeless journey start? What was the beginning?
I know, I just want to clear this up really quick. I know that a lot of people immediately assume drug addiction with homelessness. And albeit it is an issue, it is not the reason for my homelessness. I basically I've got a very poor picker when it comes to relationships, at least up until my most recent boyfriend. And I picked a bad one, a really bad one. And love is blind, and yes, oh wow, it is very blind. It is very blind, and during that time, this is the year prior to my homelessness, I had been raising, I was a single mother before this. I still am. However, my child is no longer living with me. So I made a lot of bad choices in this relationship.
What do you want people watching this, assuming that your interview gets seen by a bunch of people in the community?
Don't judge a book by its cover. And, you know, all those old adages that people say, that's one of them that you really have to pay attention to. Don't assume that because someone looks nice, for example, doesn't have that homeless look, that they're not homeless. What's the saying about walking in another person's shoes? I know everyone has had those moments where you feel embarrassed, where you feel singled out. I know everyone has. That's part of the human experience. So before you do something, say something, think of how you would feel if you were in that person's position. And I'm not talking homelessness per se, I'm talking just have compassion for your next human being. It's really important. Because acknowledging someone on the street, just saying hi, you don't know how much that can make somebody's day. And it surprised me at first because I didn't know what homelessness was about, but a smile, just saying hello, they're human beings for God's sakes. And you don't treat people like they're a piece of shit when you don't even know who they are. Sorry. But that's really important. Don't judge a book by its cover. And remember, everyone's human. We're not aliens in some kind of weird human costume, you know. That's how people treat each other. And it's really sad. Cut!
During the summer of 2020, homeless outreach workers from Jules Helping Hands were introduced to a large encampment on a former pig farm in the community of Mead, north of Spokane, where 35 to 45 people were living in a makeshift homeless camp of tents and trailers. When the property sold in October of 2020, the new owners told the residents they would need to move on or be forcibly evicted. That news set in motion a series of events resulting in the creation of a temporary or pop-up warming center at City Church of Spokane.
So as we are roughly about halfway through our time with the warming center next door, I wanted to just take a few minutes tonight, share at least from my perspective what I've seen, what I've experienced, as well as some of the other thoughts as we move a little bit, well, we're brand new into 2021, and so as we move into 2021. So Caleb, as I think he mentioned last week or a couple of weeks ago, he's had his eye on this Madison building that's attached to us behind us here for about the last 6 years. It functioned as the hub for a property management company for, I believe, almost as long as we've been in this building, and we've been in here since 2009. And over the last half dozen years or so, Caleb and I have been over in that building multiple times for various reasons. And every time I walked in there, I always saw the same thing. I saw this very old, musty, unkept money pit. But Caleb, every time he went over, he would see opportunity. He even went as far as to call the owner to see what he would be willing to sell that building to us for. And all of this came to no avail, and it remained nothing more than a pipe dream. And so then fast forward to this past June, okay? Andrea and Samaya and I were on an RV trip. We're driving down the Oregon coast, and we're driving through Tillamook, Oregon. And Caleb calls me, and he says, guess what? The owner of the Madison building passed away last month, and we have the opportunity to buy this building for $125,000 outright. Should we do it? So now, mind you, my thoughts about this building have not changed over the 6 years that Caleb has been drooling over it. But so in my mind, I'm not sure I would have wanted it even if we did get it for free. But I'm on vacation. I'm in Tillamook. And you know what's in Tillamook? Ice cream. And we're on our way. When Caleb calls, we are on our way to the Tillamook factory. And I'm about to get me a whole lot of mint chip Tillamook ice cream. So Caleb's timing was impeccable, and I said, go for it. So over the course of the next month, we get the funding, and we purchase the building, we get the keys, and John and Caleb and Will Haley and Megan Gaia, who sit on our finance council, we go over there to check out our new digs. And for me, it's like walking in the door, and it's like instant anxiety, because this place it's not pretty. But fortunately, I'm surrounded by visionaries. And over the years, I have learned to trust their vision about what could be versus the here and now of what I can see. And so we pray over the building, and our prayers are all the same. We want this building to be a building of hope. And so just over 2 months ago, on November 14th, John Leland gets an email from an old acquaintance named Gina.
My name is Gina Swanson, and I'm the director at the New Hope Resource Center. New Hope is a social service organization. We serve North Spokane County. We provide things such as gas vouchers, rental assistance, utility assistance. We have a clothing bank on site. We are affiliated with the North County Food Pantry located in Elk. The main thing that motivated New Hope to get involved really was our one board member that really has a heart for homeless people. And she really made sure that this particular situation was at the forefront of the board and myself.
Gina writes to John, I realize that this is a long shot, but I'm reaching out to everyone that I can think of. There are 45 people who have been living in broken down cars and shanties. I don't even know what a shanty is, but they're living in shanties on a property in Meade. And the property owner passed away, and the property has since sold. And so these folks need a new place to live during the months of December and January until other organizations can facilitate a more permanent housing for them. New Hope, which is the nonprofit that Gina works for and was coordinating all of this, New Hope is collaborating with many other churches and agencies to address this situation. And once a location is found, Jules Helping Hands will provide beds and food and security, etc. We are in search of a space not next to a school, roughly gymnasium size. Do you know of any possibilities?
So one evening I was just walking and praying about this situation because I just felt like there had to be someone else that could be contacted that might have a space for a warming center. And God just brought John Leland to mind. Well, I used to attend church with John. He's also a realtor who had just helped my in-laws who newly moved to the area close on a house. So I sent John an email on the weekend through his work address, and within 10 minutes he had called me and said, our church wants to do this.
And when that email came through, I knew immediately that the Lord was opening a door for us, and that I needed to share that news with the pastors here at City Church and mobilize around that need. We really didn't know what that would look like. We just knew we had to at least step in that direction.
And so within 15 minutes of receiving because I checked the timestamps. Within 15 minutes of receiving this email, John forwards it on to Caleb and me, and he says, "What are your thoughts on opening the Madison building for this need?" And Caleb almost immediately responds, "Yep," with like 3 explanation points. And so by the time I look at John's message and then I ask, "Well, can we have a meeting on Tuesday? Can we talk about this then?" John says, "Nope, too late." And I said, "Well, then just untoo late it." He did not. So originally, I was against opening up the Madison building as a warming center. Because for me, from an administrative and liability and overall just resident pessimist standpoint, it made me very nervous. But nevertheless, we prayed on it. We had more meetings. We discussed it with our insurance agent, and we proceeded to move forward with it. And we began to get excited. We began to get very excited. Could this be, we thought, could this be the big hope-filled opportunity that we've been asking for this building? And so unfortunately, in our excitement, we forgot to tell our neighbors. And so then the phone calls and the emails and the text messages begin to come in. And let me tell you, they were not nice phone calls and they were not nice emails and text messages. And so as the criticism began to build against us, I found myself becoming more and more concerned about our reputation as a church than I was concerned about actually carrying out the gospel. And at one point, amidst the growing pushback from some of those in our community, I even asked Caleb, "What if this whole thing blows up in our face?" And immediately Caleb says, "I don't care." Because Caleb, as he should have been, as we all should be, Caleb was more focused on walking out the gospel. So I've been a vocal, upfront advocate about this warming center from the beginning, but in all reality, it is because of the perseverance of both Caleb and John that this thing actually came to fruition. Kim Leland said that she believes this warming center is going to benefit our church just as much, if not more, than the guests that it is currently housing, and I agree. Because for me personally, hosting this warming center, it has opened up my eyes to see what a giant hole we have in our gospel, as some of the greatest criticisms that have come against us have come from, guess who? Other Christians. And the comments of how dare we bring something like this into our neighborhood. Well, now I've only read the entire Bible maybe a couple dozen times, but I'm pretty sure nevertheless that God has a lot to say about how it is that we are to care for people. And so forgive my confusion here, but if not this, then what the hell is the church for, right? What is the purpose of the church? Our goal cannot be to just meet on Sundays, hang out for a bit, sing some songs, listen to someone give a message, hang out for a little bit longer and then go home with the same rinse and repeat attitude of doing it all again the next Sunday without any change, life change happening in between. But yet it seems like many churches in America do just this very thing. We, church, cannot.
All right, so let's start with that question about how long you've been homeless.
I've been homeless 10 years.
And how did that homeless journey start?
It started, the homeless journey, for me, it started when my sister lived in town, and pretty much that's when it started, was when I no longer had family here.
How did that come about? What happened to your family?
What happened to my family was they moved out of town. My sister was married, still is married. Her husband had gotten a promotion at work, and that involved them having to move out of town.
So where have you stayed? Let's talk about that. What's your journey been like on the streets?
Mostly warming centers, when they come up in the wintertime, because like I said, wintertime is the hardest time, to be homeless outside. Summertime it isn't too bad, but sometimes in the winter, just the really cold temperatures become too much. And that's how I end up at warming centers.
What would you like people hearing your interview, listening to this, what would you like for them to know about yourself and about people experiencing homelessness?
I would just say, you know, because I've seen a lot of people homeless out here on the streets before. Currently, I'm staying, you know, at a warming center now with somebody that I knew before both of us were homeless. We were talking last night, him and I, and we both said, you know, we never thought we'd, you know, be on the streets. You know, so I would just say, you know, that this could, you know, homelessness could happen to anybody. You never really know when it's going to happen. It just out of nowhere kind of happens, you know, and you know, and then we are, the homeless population, you know, is I'd say a lot like your average, you know, everyday person, you know, that you might walk by and at like Walmart or Safeway, you know, or anything like that, riding the bus. Sometimes you can't even tell a person is homeless. I was like that for quite a while myself. You couldn't really tell, but you know, I was homeless or not, you know, and the only that giveaway was, you know, I'm carrying a backpack and a sleeping bag.
Pop-up homeless warming centers create a symbiotic relationship between the community and those experiencing homelessness. Any successful warming center needs the active involvement of the community to meet a wide variety of needs. These can include simple gifts of toiletries, clothes, and personal items to make the guests more comfortable, or laundry help with shelter bedding. Community involvement also includes help from local street medicine teams to serve the medical needs of guests and preventing unnecessary trips to hospital emergency rooms. And there are always larger needs such as facility repair and maintenance. This roofing company donated hours of labor along with needed materials to repair a leaky roof. The needs of the center and the guests present an opportunity for people in the community to get personally involved, to practice good deeds, and even to change attitudes.
When they first talked about it, I wasn't really for it, just because of the society and things we've heard, but this has been great. It's such a good thing, and I was a slow starter, but I just think the world of these people. They're amazing.
One community group that recognized this opportunity and stepped up is the Congregation of the Gathering House, a church located just a few blocks away from the City Church Warming Center. They embraced this opportunity for community involvement by making and delivering 40 sack lunches for the shelter guests every day, Monday through Friday. Welcome to the Gospel According to Sandwiches.
Our pastor has done a great job of helping us see that it's important for us to love the community, and this is one of the ways that we get to do that.
So a little history of why we got involved in this. Sometime back, 8 years ago, I was involved in the leadership team of the Spokane Homeless Coalition. And when the Community Court of Downtown Spokane launched, they needed someone to supply a sack lunch. And they asked if we could do it. And we began then supplying 50 sack lunches every Monday to the Community Court. Our church would eventually take that whole thing on. For a while, I was doing it with my wife and I on our living room or in our dining room table. And we just kept thinking, well, we'll just do this for a while, But it just kept growing and growing. Eventually there was 100. And for the 8 years, we have supplied sack lunches for the Community Court of Spokane. And suddenly this new shelter appears 2-3 blocks away from us that City Church was going to open. And one of the needs they had was to supply lunch. We have 8 years now of experience of how to pack sack lunches for this particular population. And a lot of little things go with it. Bad teeth, so you don't have apples and things like that because the gums are difficult, the teeth are difficult. We learned a lot about whether you can do a peanut butter sandwich or nuts in the bags, what works, what doesn't, how to make it cost effective, even where to buy this stuff cheaper than you could get it elsewhere. So we already had this years of experience. So for us, it was really a matter of going from 50 sack lunches every Sunday after church to 280 sack lunches.
Sack lunches are assembled every Sunday at the Gathering House immediately after church. But the sandwiches themselves are made on Mondays and Wednesdays by two ladies who know how to make sandwiches and who share a personal commitment to serving others as an expression of their deep personal faith.
God, I just thank you for giving us the opportunity to make these sandwiches for people who are in need of food, God, but more so the fact that they are in need of you. So, God, I pray that through this contribution of sandwiches, God, as they receive them, they will be blessed, God, and know that it's from you that these sandwiches are coming because of the love that you have for them. So I thank you and praise you in the name of Christ. Amen. Well, you know, I think there's a lot of people that think going to church on a Sunday morning is really all that's necessary. And I know there's some that think, well, we don't want to enable people that are homeless. We don't want to give them food because that enables them to depend on us. Well, that's not the case. What we do is provide them these sandwiches, and other churches provide meals for them, breakfast and dinner. This is simply their lunch. But they're also given other opportunities, other services that are available. So I feel when we make these sandwiches, we're just doing a small thing for these people that will help them. They need nourishment, obviously. And in the long run, it'll help them to become independent so that they won't have to depend on us making sandwiches for them in the end. But I do it because God calls us to do it. Jesus says, what you do for the least of these, you do for him. And I'm not necessarily saying these are the least of these, but I think in a way, perhaps society certainly thinks they are. But God loves these people just as much as he loves me, I know that. And he wants them to be provided for, so I do it for that reason. Linda?
I just feel like it's just being the hands and feet of Christ.
The finished sandwiches are packed up, and 40 of them are delivered to the shelter each morning around 9 a.m., where they're sorted, dated, refrigerated, and eventually handed out for lunch, and later for outreach to the street homeless.
What we would love to see are other churches who say, if you can do it for that small shelter, maybe you could show us what you're doing and we could do it for this shelter or for that work and for this, and we could teach all the things that we have learned in our 7-8 years of experience. I mean, Jesus said, as you do the least of these, you know, you've done to me, the least of these. I think every church needs to start doing a little bit of thinking in our society, who are the least? Who are the least? And we know it's the foster care kids who got aged out and got, here's your suitcase, you're 18, get out. You get no money, you're done. It's the single moms, it's the people who were raised by drug addict parents, and it's not always the people who got themselves in trouble. Sometimes, yes it is, it's the con who gets out of having serving their time, they're on parole and they can't get a job. No matter how hard they try, no one's willing to give them a shot or hire them. Who are the least of these in our society? And Jesus said, as you take care of the least of these, you're doing it to me. So I think every church needs to say, in my neighborhood, are the least here? And how do we love them? How do we minister to them? How do we take care of them?
How long have you been homeless?
Total, I've been homeless 6 years out of my 43. Started out when I was 14. And then a couple times between breaking up with my wife and her coming back and the conflict there. Yeah. That's what happened this last time, and I've been on the streets this time since March.
So walk me through how a kid 14 years old ends up homeless.
My mom was extremely emotionally and physically abusive my whole life. At 14, I walked in on her trying to overdose on pills. Got the ambulance, got her to the hospital. When she got home from the hospital, she handed me a backpack, told me to fill it up and leave. And I did. And that's pretty much the last time we really talked. And she moved back down south. I was up here, so, yeah. Then I ended up in high school, trying to finish high school, homeless. I met my high school sweetheart, and we married and started a family young, found God, but she's the one that has the addiction to meth. And she just, we both had really bad childhoods, so that one was just hard for her to get over, and she just kept falling back into it, over and over and over again, and kind of broke our family up. And the last time when we actually got divorced, I've been raising my 3 kids by myself for the last 8 years. This was the first time, they're all grown up, 18 now, so they're doing all right here in Spokane. And I ended up at the arena, and I started, meeting people, and just pretty much been going through the summer, just meeting people and helping, and just kind of doing what I'm doing here.
How have you been treated by shelters, by law enforcement, by others in the community? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, law enforcement, for me, I have no issues. They've always pretty much treated me kind. I've never been arrested, never been in prison. I don't even think I spent a day in jail. So as far as that aspect, I haven't seen they harass me, if I'm sleeping somewhere. They haven't really bothered me too much, tell me to move or whatever. I hear a lot of happening. Jules, this shelter's amazing, and what she's doing, it's amazing. I'm glad to be a little part of it, get to see it. The arena, when that first started out, that's what kind of inspired me to, hey, we need to figure out something for food, because we were starving there. Really. It was not enough food there and stuff like that. I don't know, it's just the day-to-day basics that are kind of like a shower and a bathroom and a toilet. Right now with COVID, there's not even a restroom you can use, really, so it's kind of that part of the basic stuff, being a human, that kind of wear on you out here.
Where did you spend this past Christmas? Maybe you spent it at home with family and close friends. You probably didn't spend it handing out Christmas gifts to people under a bridge in the snow, or even in a homeless warming center. If you're going to operate a homeless warming center during the winter months between Thanksgiving and Easter, then the question isn't whether or not you'll celebrate Christmas, but how and why it's important, and what personal price you're willing to pay in order to serve others at this special time of the year. The early church taught that it's more blessed to give than to receive. And Christmas in a warming center presents us with an opportunity to practice what we believe. Christmas Eve at the City Church Warming Center included a hot dinner for the guests, donated by a local restaurant and served by shelter staff. Next came a visit by Santa and a shower trailer. You were expecting reindeer and a sleigh? Really? The chance to take a hot shower and get clean felt like Christmas for many of the shelter guests.
Something everybody needs. Everybody needs to be able to get a hot shower. I remember when I first came here, I was camped out down at the river taking a bath in the river every day. Then I met Jared and found out that he run a portable shower and stuff. And I started coming there every day. And then one day he was short-handed and he says, "Can you help me pack up the shower and stuff today and run everything?" And I said, "Sure." I've been helping them out ever since, and I'm just glad to be able to come down here on Christmas Eve and bring these guys a shower. Everybody loves a good hot shower.
Yeah, I'm clean. Love it. Thank you, you guys.
In early December, City Church and the shelter staff created a tree of sharing and gave each guest an opportunity to ask for one thing they really wanted or needed. Names and requests were gathered, a list was compiled and sent out to the church and community, and it all came together on Christmas morning.
I think that's everybody, he said. Kelly said everyone got one.
Did everybody get a present?
Okay, you guys can all open. Are you overwhelmed? Well, Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas, and thank you again.
There's no reason why Christmas in a homeless warming center shouldn't look much like Christmas in your house, complete with gifts, surprises, tears, and gratitude. This is how family celebrates Christmas. And today, everyone in the shelter is family.
Make sure you put that away and you stick it inside your stuff, okay?
A few weeks ago, one of our co-leaders, John Leland, had this idea that, hey, what if we gave up our Christmas dinner? We'll do Christmas together as a family in the morning, but what if we gave up our Christmas dinner, our time, and we opened up the church and we made dinner for the guests and the staff and the volunteers over at the warming center.
So yeah, living in this neighborhood, literally 4 blocks away from this church in the warming center, the thought of sitting around a Christmas dinner table with just my family enjoying great food and great conversation just didn't seem right during this season when I have brothers and sisters literally 4 blocks away who might not have that luxury. And so I really felt it pressed on my heart that, you know, whatever it might look like to share this Christmas experience with the warming shelter to some degree. And so I just shared that loosely with City Church, just saying, hey, this is what my family and I are going to do. We're going to somehow open up our Christmas day and dinner to the warming shelter. If you guys feel so compelled to be a part of that, I'd love to hear from you. Right after saying that, I literally had 10 families come up and say, hey, we would love to be a part of that.
And the whole idea really kind of caught fire, not kind of caught fire, completely caught fire, to the point that we let our church know what we were doing, and we had to start turning people away because there just wasn't enough room to be able to do that.
And it was pressed on our hearts to make it less of a soup kitchen kind of feel and more of a family dinner experience. I mean, that's what we all enjoy as families, is a great Christmas dinner with friends and rich food and great conversation. Why shouldn't everybody have that luxury? And so my wife worked really hard to set up the hall like a family dinner style with place settings and just beautiful things. All the families that contributed food worked really hard to smoke meats and to kind of go out of the way and make things feel gourmet and taste gourmet. We had great coffee, we had great desserts. I mean, we had so many desserts, and we just really wanted this to be an experience for people that they would remember and that they would love. And so what was just kind of a spark in my mind of sharing an evening with the warming center turned into quite an event where we were able to really spoil our homeless community here at the warming center.
Here we are tonight. It's been amazing to have all the guests from the warming center over at the Madison building come join us tonight. Watching all of our church just come together and love on our guests and really overcoming that stigma of what homelessness is has been just, it has been humbling, I guess is probably the best way to put that, and to watch all of just everyone intermingle as if they've known each other for years, not just a few minutes, not just meeting, but have known each other for years, and watching the conversations flow and watching smiles all over the place has been such a tremendous blessing. And just talking to Randy here a few minutes ago, there's something very special that is happening here that we are very excited to, as a church, to grab a hold of and to really see what's next. And so tonight has been so amazing. Probably one of the, at least me personally, one of the best Christmases that I've ever experienced in my 43 years on this earth.
How long have you been homeless?
Actually, for about 1 year.
What was going on before you were homeless, and how did you wind up here?
I had an apartment, and finally, after 4 years, I decided to move on, and so I left my apartment. And I knew people that were homeless, and I started talking with them and hanging with them. Well, in the middle of turning around and then trying to find another place to live, you know, an apartment, I fell into this disease thing that kind of swept over, I thought, just Spokane, but the whole nation, and it put everything on hold for me. And I didn't realize it put a lot of people on hold. And so I had no place to stay. I'm on Social Security, so I'm on a set income. And that barely lasted me to get through the stepping stones of day to day. And so I got into a shelter, and I tell you, I didn't realize how many people out there were homeless. I've seen magazines on it, I've seen documentaries, I guess, but to witness it, it's a whole different story. And if you would have told me some years ago you're going to be homeless, I would have laughed in their face. I'm not laughing now. But it's a way that people survive, and then there's good people out there and there's bad people out there. But that's in life general. But to be homeless, you have nothing except for what you're carrying on your back in a backpack, and that's everything you own. And I went from a fully furnished apartment to everything from down to nothing. And what I don't understand is why people would steal from somebody that don't have anything. And I got caught in the middle, and now I'm trying to work my way out. And it's people like you that turn around and say, okay, there's a whole different side of homeless that you can't read about or see on TV. And hopefully I can help a little bit and tell a little bit of my story.
Dennis, you've obviously got some miles behind you. You've only been homeless for about a year. What was going on in your life before that?
Oh, I had an apartment. I retired my small business, and I thought that I'd just keep moving forward. And then being in the plating business, brass, nickel, copper, chrome, I wore a mask around my neck and not my mouth and nose. And therefore, breathing all those metals got into my lungs, and that's what got me on Social Security. I use this, I live by this. And to walk around and then grasp every breath is it's something you do or you don't want to experience. But with the places like the shelter next door, they've got opening hands to help you out, and I think that's pretty outrageous. And there's some people that abuse it, and there's some people that say, whoa, this is fantastic. And I'm one of those, whoa, this is fantastic, because it's helped me along the way. And every day I learn something. Some small things, some big things, but every day is, believe it or not, an adventure. And it's a blessing to be here.
The success of community-based warming centers, shelters, and outreaches, like this one at City Church, depends upon broad-based community support and involvement. The most creative solutions for effectively addressing homelessness are in our community, as individuals, churches, businesses, and community groups bring their unique contributions to the table. We all have a part to play in addressing homelessness.
Hi, I'm Mike Ellis, and my good friend Eric Johnson is the owner of Firehouse Subs here in Spokane. And every once in a while he'll call me up and say, hey Mike, I'd like to be able to put together some lunches for someone that deserves it. Do you know somebody? And I instantly thought about Jules Helping Hands and the good work that you're all doing. Let Eric know, and he sent up his son, who is putting together the lunches right now. And Andrew just got his Eagle Scout, and so he is helping us get the lunches together. But Eric put together and Andrew put together a meal for 40 people today. So thank you for letting us do this.
Hi, Andrew.
This is Julie.
What do community generosity, cooperation, and collaboration look like? Today, they look like the donation of an RV by Jules Helping Hands to Family Promise of Spokane. When the owner of this RV offered to donate it to Jules Helping Hands, the board quickly realized it could be put to better use by Family Promise. So, Jules Helping Hands quickly redirected the donation to where it could do the most good by serving struggling families. Practicing cooperation and collaboration is how we work together to build the shalom of our community.
We're glad to have this RV. It's really going to be helpful for us. What we will use them for now is to help families that need to be isolated because of COVID or being sick in the shelter. We will have it set up outside, have it plugged in so that it stays warm, but gives them an isolation spot outside the shelter. And so that's what it'll be used for probably the next 8 or 9 months. And then after that, we will use it as another resource for families that are maybe have weakened immune systems or have other sensory issues to where it's too overwhelming to be inside the shelter. We will use the camper for that. I think one of the best things, one of the things I love about Jules and love about our partnership is the way that we do work together. And we've worked together in so many different ways in the past. I mean, Julie started out by preparing meals for us and for our families when our commercial kitchen went down. And then we've connected on helping them find a location, helping them with the warming center with blankets. Now she's giving us an RV. We're giving her an industrial dryer. And so the way that these agencies, the way that we can work together to really utilize the resources as best way possible to help as many people as possible. And so I love that about Jules Helping Hands, but also about our community as a whole.
Man, I just know that in community, community is not about consumption. It's not about taking things in. Community is about pouring out into other people and serving other people. So when people say they want to be part of a vibrant community, or they don't want, or they want to live in a healthy community, part of being in a community with each other is pouring into others. It's not just always consuming. And so that's one thing I love. I mean, where you want healthy community to exist, that's a great call to you to start pouring in and serving that community in one way, shape, or form. So the homeless are with us. They're part of our community. If we're not feeling called to serve our homeless population, then I would question whether you're called to community.
I am the children's director here at City Church, and I also dabble in the women's ministry. I've always been very hesitant with the homeless. I've always had the perspective that if you're homeless, you can always get out of it because there's lots of services. So I have kind of shut a blind eye to the homeless population here. And not only that, I've also built up a fear because I've thought, well, if they're good people and they want to get out of it, then they will, but the people who don't want to get out of it must be bad people, and they must be scary people or harmful people. So I have tried to, I've always just kind of turned away from them and tried to just walk the other way and not really face it head on. It's really made me see them as people. I decided, I made a promise to God that I would give it a good shot of, of just diving in and getting experienced in that area of just being exposed to the shelter, being exposed to speaking with homeless people and hearing their stories and talking with them. And so I started with making cookies and took my kids over, and that was a good experience because my kids were pretty petrified. You know, it's a different environment, and they're not used to, and I realized I got to be the example here. I have to be the leader in this and show them that these are just people, and it's nothing to be scared of. But I think it was the first step for myself to step out of my comfort zone and take that big leap to get past my own personal fears and my own personal reservations about the homeless population. There is going to be nothing but blessing from God for expanding those tent stakes and getting a little uncomfortable, but it's just been so exciting to see how much God has changed our church and our just the attitude in our church and the community in our church and the bond that all of our church members have just with this little thing. Just for these few months, it's just been really cool to see. And even though it seems scary and seems intimidating, and it's very well organized, and they do a really great job in the shelter, and they really welcome in any help that anybody wants to give, so the church can really mold it to however they want it to look.
Yeah, I mean, City Church, we've always been about loving others, loving God and loving others. That's kind of our mantra. It's how we kind of posture ourselves. How can we best be available to other people who need to understand the grace of the Lord and the love of His church? And so it's, opening a warming center wasn't necessarily on our radar, but the posture of it certainly was, loving people well. And the least of those, the people who really need to understand that they're valued and loved and have a name. And so we just really felt like, it made sense based on what we knew the Lord calls us into as individuals, but also collectively. We're called to love people. And if people are presented to us on a golden platter, to love well, why wouldn't we accept the opportunity to do that? So that's one thing I love about City Church is we continue to be nimble with our approach. Some would say it's unorganized or unstructured, but I would say it's prayerful and intentional in the fact that we want to love people well. And so there's a good opportunity to love well. We're going to take advantage of that because I think that's what we're called to. And if we're called to it, the Lord's going to bless it. And we've seen that already. We've seen blessing come out of that commitment to just, say yes and answer that call.